Political temperatures continue to escalate in the country ahead of the 2022 general elections. Now, it is evident that the leaders are shifting more attention to the youth who have the masses that count in every poll. Now, the great question is, what role does the youth in academia play in national politics? Today, we're having a discussion with Omurwa Maurice, who is a student leader at Kenyatta University, to help us answer that question. Omurwa, thank you so much for dedicating your time for this discussion. Right, you could introduce yourself to our viewers. They get to know who Maurice is.
Ken, thank you for having me. My name is Omurwa Maurice. I'm a fifth-year student in the School of Pharmacy. I'm also a student leader at KUSA, serving as the congressman in the School of Pharmacy. I think that pretty much describes who I am. The rest of the details will know about me as we continue.
Right. Thank you so much, Maurice. Now, right into the discussion. Bring us to speed with the current student leadership in relation to the Universities Amendment Act of 2016 that brought a lot of changes in the student leadership and the structure, and how elections are conducted in the universities.
The Universities Amendment Act of 2016 brought changes in the structure of leadership and the election process.
Right.
It was signed in the 16th of December 2016 by the President, and actually came into force in the elections that followed in the year 2017. We've only had 4 unions elected under the Amendment Act.
Right.
This has greatly changed the structure of leadership we have. Now, unlike before, student leaders are elected by delegates through what we call the electoral college system.
Right.
It's something that looks like the American electoral college system, though totally not exactly the same. Delegates from faculties and from schools in other universities get to elect the executive. We have 7 positions which represent the face of Kenya. All these members of the executive come from different regions of the country, what we usually call the provinces, the 8 provinces. Unlike before, when students could directly engage in voting, like
right.
we do in our national politics,
yes.
Now we have elected representatives who practice indirect democracy on behalf of the comrades.
Now, Maurice, in regards to that, do you feel this amendment was a success to the student leadership? Now, what are students saying about it, considering that this is a bill that was passed in Parliament without much actively involving the subjects of this bill?
Like most bills get through Parliament without involving us. I think that we can agree on most bills. Public participation is a problem. This bill, students did not actively give their views on it. The merit by which we can rate its success depends on so many things, but personally, my view was that the current leadership does not reflect the wishes of the comrades most of the time.
Right.
Because 54 individuals or less than 100 individuals cannot really reflect the will of 10,000, 40,000. Some universities have close to 100,000 students. I strongly feel now we do not have the vibrancy that unions used to have.
Right.
Actually, most of the names of these unions changed from what it used to be as unions. Now we have associations. Most of these people in universities, the students, the comrades, you can ask around who the president is, and most of them do not know their president.
Sure.
We've had very few presidents transit from university leadership into national leadership in the past 4 years. That shows you how much we've degraded student leadership.
Right. Maurice, now, based on your sentiments, don't you feel this bill was meant to create some sort of a disconnect between the student leadership and the national politics? Because in the national politics, the voters, they vote in right from the MCAs, they vote the member of parliaments, the representatives, they even vote the governors and to the top seat, the presidency. Now, with this difference that we're having in the student leadership with the national politics, what do you feel about it? Is it creating a disconnect between the politics of the two institutions?
I do not feel it was created. It was the bill was intended to create a disconnect, but it has created a disconnect.
Sure.
The intentions may not be what necessarily translated into, but now we have a total disconnect from national leadership. And I strongly feel the bill does not reflect the will of the Constitution, the supreme law of the land.
Right.
Constitutionally, we have a right to vote. But students, comrades, no longer have that right to choose their leaders. They do so through elected representatives. And like I said before, in the recent times, you can hardly come by a leader who has transited from student leadership into national politics. Clearly, that is a disconnect.
Sure.
We could do better. University should be the grounds where we train our leaders. Even in other democracies, we've seen people transit from student leadership. Barack Obama was the first elected, the first black president of the law, president of the Harvard University for law students.
Right.
That shows you how much student leadership should play in national politics. I think in our situation, it has created a disconnect.
Right. Now, for you as a leader, what role does the student leadership play, or rather, what role should the student leadership play in shaping the national politics?
Student leaders should actively take a part in the discussions around national debates. When we talk about fuel prices, student leaders should be on the forefront of talking about fuel prices, because they affect how comrades travel to school. We commute every day to campus. Student leaders should talk about our democratic spaces. When we see individuals being stifled to freely express themselves out there, student leaders should be on the forefront to defending these rights. Like it used to be in the days that have passed, there were times when we had a one-party state.
Right.
And it was these student leaders who actively fought, went to the streets. We lost some of them. And now we have a better democracy because of student leaders. I think the current crop of leaders should take up that responsibility.
Right.
To fight for our spaces out there and increase that vibrancy. Despite the electoral college system, we can regain that vibrancy.
Now, Maurice, talking about this vibrancy, we could go back to the books of history. In the 1970s to the 1990s, the earlier students, in the universities, we could talk of people like Raila Amolo Odinga. We could talk about Senator James Orengo. We could also talk about the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi. So these people were so powerful. These people were so vibrant, as students in shaping what the national politics was. So, these people, they kept the government on toes from those times. So what do you think happened to this radicalization and the current student leadership? What do you think can be done so that, they gain that position, they get that momentum that the initial students had?
Yes, you've mentioned a few names that are household names. They've fought for this country, for the second liberation. I think now the current crop of student leaders should take up a new challenge, fight for the third liberation. We have challenges as a country, and the young people suffer those challenges the most. The current crop of student leaders should take it as their moral responsibility to improve the situation the country is in.
Right.
Bob Orengo, Justin Muturi served their generational responsibility. Now it is about time we serve also our responsibility. Our country is in chaos. People complain every day that the economy is hurting. Comrades are hurting. When the economy is hurting, we students suffer the most.
Sure.
It is now our responsibility to go out there. We have the largest voting bloc in the country. I think we should take our leaders we should act to take our leaders on head on, to take responsibility for where the country is headed on. We're not headed in the right direction, I feel, strongly so. Comrades are suffering the most out of the hurting economy. Our student leaders should speak to these issues.
Right.
These issues affect comrades. They do not affect just our parents.
Now, Maurice, do you think now the comrades themselves, do they really know their position? Do they even have that feeling that they should be coming out to shape, to make things right for this country and, for the future of the country? Are they really even aware of this?
Sometimes, actually, we blame leaders and forget the comrades themselves.
Right.
They do not ask the leaders to perform. They do not ask the leaders to take that firm stand. Comrades now have laxity sometimes. They're comfortable with just being in their hostels, just being in their rooms, and having everything provided unto them. They have not taken this fight. Some of those leaders you've mentioned, some of the people you've mentioned in the past were actually not student leaders. Some of them were not in elective positions, but they fought because they knew the youth had a responsibility. Comrades sometimes take a back seat. They feel that they need to be in leadership to take this responsibility, which is not the case actually.
Right.
I think this is a call to the comrade that who is not even in office, the comrade that has no leadership position, to take a stand and be assertive.
Now, Maurice, well answered. I really like the way you articulating these matters. So, in your own opinion, what are some of the recommendations, what are some of the suggestions that you could bring on board, so that, the student leadership, it goes back to where it was, and even better, so that the voice of the students' leadership, the voice of students count when it comes to matters of the economy, matters of national interest. So what are some of the, recommendations that you could, bring to board on this?
The bullet short of it would be an amendment to the Universities Amendment Act. We need to go back to universal suffrage. Then the student leaders would have more legitimacy than they do now. But again, like I said, it doesn't all stop with student leaders. We need to awaken our comrades. Individually, they should understand that they have a responsibility in all this. But the best shot would be take back the Universities Amendment Act. There is a conversation already in the House, sponsored by Honorable Babo Wino. If we reverse the Universities Amendment Act, I believe that will bring back the vibrancy we used to have. But the current crop of leaders, even those elected under the Universities Amendment Act, under the delegate system, should immediately after elections, should go back to comrades and find out what are their issues, what they want served, what they want to be addressed, what are the immediate issues, concerns.
Right.
And that can bring back that legitimacy. Immediately after elections, after you're done with the delegate system, you consolidate your support among comrades. Talk to them, meet them in your daily endeavors, and that will improve the relationship between students and their leadership. They will own the leadership more.
Right.
Yes.
Now, based on that, Mr. Omurwa, so you could also maybe tell us in a nutshell how has your leadership, how has your leadership journey, how has it been, and maybe what are your future plans concerning students and now the nation at large? What could be your future plans?
I have had 3 years at leadership, specifically in the School of Pharmacy. I think it has been an amazing time. There were ups, there were downs. I think there were challenges and there were lessons. I have still a year left of study. I'll be a student. This is my final year, the 5th year. Because of the experience that we've gathered in all those years of leadership, I have an advantage to have been a student when we used to vote by universal suffrage in 2016. And when the bill passed through Parliament, the then President, Werewere Sam, commented that he actually might be the last Kusa president we've had. And I'm sorry to say, the last 4 years, that might have seemed to be the case. Werewere is considered to have been the last president Kusa had. In my final year, I want to have a run at presidency. I believe even with the delegate system, Kusa can have a president. I want to actively improve the relationship we have with our students. I have seen the gaps. Like I said, I've been a student in both eras. I've seen the gaps, especially with the delegate system, and I've seen the ups and downs of the universal suffrage system. I want to bring that experience into student leadership.
Right. We
complain too much. I want to be part of the solution.
Right. That's so nice of you. Now, you've only told us what you would want to do, in school, in a leader, in the form of leadership of you as a student. You mentioned at a point that very few student leaders transition to the national politics. You haven't touched something on that. So does it mean that you want your kind of leadership to end in student, as a student leader? You're not going to, go into, the national politics, at least because you're an academia. You've been to school and all that. So there are some of the challenges you're facing with our leaders because, their schooling is questionable. Don't you want to transition on the other side as well to make Kenya at least a better place?
Yes, I definitely would want to transit into national leadership, but we handle one step at a time.
Right.
I think now I do not want to get ahead of myself. Sure. 2022 is coming. First, we must start the conversation. what are the things we want to address in our national leadership. I want to be part of the conversation, and mostly when I run for office, my greatest credential that I offer is experience. Right now, I do not strongly feel I have the experience to run for office. But you've seen even in the American politics, in the Kenyan politics, offices and seats that campaigns that are run with students or the youth, young people running campaigns offer the best campaign strategies. I think this coming election, my best shot would be work with a campaign team. In that way, I will ensure the campaign team and the manifestos are centered in helping the youth. I want to be a part of a story that concentrates on the youth.
Right.
Because I'll be defending my rights, I'll be defending the rights of my friends and those that I've gone to school with. But in this election, I will not definitely run for office.
Right. Now, talking of 2022, the general elections are just around the corner. We are few months shy away from, the 2022 polls. So, as a leader, with borrowing from your experience, what are some of the activities you put in place to ensure that the voice of the youth is well represented in the national politics? Rather, what are some of the activities you may be running to ensure that coming 2022, it's well with the youth?
Right now, we're actually concentrating on voter registration. There is an undergoing exercise by the IBC, mass registration of voters. We're making sure as many as possible youths register to be voters. The current crop of students joined university in 2018, the current 4th years. That was after the election. So you realize a majority, if not 90%, maybe 100% of students are not voters.
Sure.
Recently, we got into an agreement with the IBC. They're registering students in the universities. Students do not have to travel as far as Nyanza or Western or Northeastern or the coast or Central. They can be registered from where they are in their universities. I think that will increase the number of voters we have, the number of youth voters we have. We're also encouraging youths to vie for elective offices. Youths between the age of 18 and 35 who feel they have the right resources and the right qualifications to run for office, we will work with their campaigns. We will support them regardless of where they come from, regardless whether they run in our own constituencies. We will be supporting them.
Right.
Yes.
Now, I like that you've mentioned that the current crop of students that you have in the universities are people who joined university from 2018. This was a year after the 2017 elections. So they've probably not participated in the national elections. Probably some of them don't even know the essence of them going there to, register as voters and coming to the polls day, going there to vote. So are you running also some sort of civic education to them to bring them to speed to, knowing their right position when it comes to national politics, the essence of voting and, participating actively in national politics?
Yes, essentially civic education is what we're doing. And it's a good thing to work with learned people.
Sure.
It doesn't take so much effort and energy to do civic education to students within universities. They understand the place of leaders, the place of politics in shaping their lives. Within that 1 week, when we told students that we will be bringing voter registration to their universities, so many of them have been asking questions. So many of them have been reaching out. How do we do this? Do we have to register just to vote in the areas where the university is? If I'm studying at Rongo University and I'm from Kirinyaga, do I have to vote in Rongo when the time for the election comes? So many of them get this so fast. And civic education is essentially what we've been doing. And I think it is one of those things that we took up and are turning out so well. Yes.
Now, Maurice, as we wind up this discussion, what could be your final words of remarks to the students? Because I might understand you people are headed to in the school elections as well. So what could be your words of advice to students in schools ahead of the election that you're supposed to have? And also you could also mention something in regards to the national politics, the national election that you're supposed to have in 2022.
My greatest call to students in this election is peace. I think so many people out there look at us, how we conduct ourselves, especially around elections. I urge students, as we head to the the university elections to be very peaceful, and let us have our conversations around ideas and ideologies. If we start the conversation from universities to be about ideas and the character of the individuals we want to elect in student leadership, that will help in shaping the kind of conversations we have nationally. I want to urge our students to shun tribalism, to shun things around ethnicity. These trivial matters around elections could end within universities. If they end within universities, that will be the starting point for the national conversation. As we head to the national elections, I urge our students to register as voters, to take up elective positions. Those between the ages of 35, between 18 and 35 can run for office. I want us to take up these positions. They're not meant for anyone, just a specific number of individuals. Run for office. We will give you the support by virtue of you being one of us who understands us, who can articulate our issues. Run for office. If you have the right resources, the right qualifications, we are not asking everyone who is a young man to run for office. We also need people who understand what politics and leadership and power is all about. It's a strong calling. We want people who have integrity. We want people who have leadership in them, and who want to serve, purposely serve, not just get into office and relax in it. That is my call to students and comrades and youth, the youth out there.
Right. So thank you so much, Maurice, for that great talk. I think before we go to the elections, I'd wish we also have more of these discussions, so that the youth get to find exactly what is their role and what is their position and where do they need to be. So thank you so much for your time. We hope to have you here again and again.
Thank you for having me.
Right.
I will come. If you invite me, definitely I will come. This is a conversation that I love to be a part of.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for staying with us throughout the discussion. Now, that has been Omurwa Maurice, who is a student leader at Kenyatta University, explaining to us the role of students, the role of youth in academia when it comes to the national politics. We hope to have such discussions again and again until the students know, the youth get to know what exactly do they need to do when it comes to the national elections.